This model by NZG of the Liebherr HS 8100 HD crawler crane supersedes the earlier 885 version. Opening up the box, there's the usual pair of expanded polystyrene trays. And there's also another small Liebherr branded box, and that contains a slurry wall grab. A couple of instruction sheets complete the contents. One of the sheets describes the reeving of the A-frame, but it's all a bit unnecessary, as we'll see later. And the second instruction sheet is long and comprehensive and includes the various configurations of the model. It's all pictorial and easy enough to follow, and perhaps the only thing that's missing that would be useful is a parts list. But overall it's very good, unless you don't like very long pieces of paper. Let's move on to the model, and it's very similarly packed to the previous 885 model. And it's factory sealed, and there are lots of parts in the top tray. And if we cut a bit more factory sealing, we can see what's in the bottom. If we take off the top tray, we see the crane. But don't worry, it's not an unusual upside down design. And here's the proof of that when it's outside the box. It's interesting that there's some additional packaging on the A-frame. And that's because NZG has been helpful and the A-frame has in fact been reeved in the factory. So that is one less job to do, but you do need to make sure that you don't bounce the ropes off the pulleys when you handle the crane. Unusually, the model has a box within a box, and here is the slurry wall grab. And it's in its own Liebherr box and has the NZG model number of 9451. As usual, there are a couple of trays, and if we lift off the lid, the grab sits inside surrounded by soft paper. For the basic assembly, we'll build the crane and add on the slurry wall grab. So to start with, we'll begin with the counterweight, which consists of a number of separate parts. And each of the small blocks is skewered together by a U-shaped pin, which helps to keep the counterweight together. It's a good idea, and it keeps the blocks together and stops them flying everywhere if you blow your nose nearby. The real crane is able to assemble the counterweight itself when in erection mode. And once it's all ready, the crane backs up to the counterweight. The chains that are hanging down get connected, and then the counterweight is lifted by hydraulics on the crane. Assembling the boom sections is just the normal process. They go together well, and they are secured by tiny nuts and bolts. And here we see old fat fingers using the special tools that are provided to do up the nuts and bolts. The one thing you don't want to do though is to drop these tiny parts on the floor, because then you'll be scrambling around with a magnifying glass trying to find them. Still, the good news is the tools work well, and when you've done up the connections, they are nice and secure. So here is the boom assembled, and the pendants are very nice with their wire connections. And by turning the key on the winch drum, we can raise the boom. There are 2 ropes to fit to the slurry grab, and here we fitted a couple of pendant shackles to make a nicer connection. With the grab attached, the model's complete in its first configuration. The crawler tracks are metal and they're mounted on nicely detailed frames. And the high standard of detailing continues on the cab both inside and outside. The body panels are nicely decorated and the handrails and ladder are made of soft plastic. And at the back the counterweight blocks look convincing. The boom sections are made of metal, as are the pulleys. The slurry wall grab is also a high quality metal part, and all of the connection pins are discrete. For the dragline configuration, there's a metal fair lead arrangement which sits at the boom foot, and the dragline bucket is also a high quality metal part. In crane mode, there's an auxiliary jib which sits at the top of the boom, and there are a nice pair of metal hooks. For our first look at the features, we'll strip down the crane to use as transport loads, and it's good that there's enough rope on the luffing drum to fully lower the A-frame. That doesn't leave a fully realistic transport load because of the handrails, and also you can't fold up the walkways on the side of the body. The track frames are nice because they can be narrow for transport or you widen them for when the crane is working. But another feature on this model is that the tracks are removable, and to do that you'd start off by taking off the plastic covers which cover the screws, and then you get the screwdriver out to undo the two screws which hold the track frames on. And the only word of warning is that whilst it's easy to take the track frames off, fitting them back on is rather more awkward. There are jacks on the crane which can be lowered by unscrewing, but whilst we've got the crawler tracks off, let's take a closer look at them. And to begin with, they can be rolled easy enough by hand. They are spring-loaded for tension, and it's nice that the crawler tracks also have working rollers. With the tracks off, we can make some nice transport loads. The grab works well, and by working the winches on the crane you can open and close it. And in that respect, it's just like the real slurry wall grab. Now let's take a look at a couple of other features on the crane body. To work the main winches you need to open a panel, so you have to take off a ladder first. And once you can get inside, you use a key to operate the winches, which both have positive brakes. The same system also applies to the luffing winch, which also has a nice positive brake. To configure the model as a dragline, you need to change the pulleys at the top, and you also need to fit the fair lead at the boom foot. The purpose of this on the real crane is to reduce rope wear as the bucket swings about, and here you can see how the bucket is fitted with the rope running to the fair lead. There's no proper way to fit the rope from the fair lead to the bucket chain, but as a tip you can use one of the small brass bolts and screw it in and secure the rope. Once you're all set up, you can work the bucket realistically from a tipping mode and wind it into a dragging mode. Another mode for the model is as a crane. There's an auxiliary jib which goes on the boom top, and then you can add on the two hooks that are provided. This is a nice update to the previous 885 model, and its flexibility has been further increased by the addition of the slurry wall grab. The standard of the detailing and the features on the model are very good, so if you want a flexible, high quality crawler crane model, this one is outstanding.